مساء الخير. Good afternoon. مساء الخير. أهلا بكم جميعا. بنرحب بكم النهارده في طبعا يوم طويل من الفعاليات. أنا إنجي حجازي، مدير أبحاث مشروع مسارات لما بعد النيوليبرالية. إحنا مشروع بيست في الجامعة الأمريكية في كلية العلوم، كلية العلاقات الدولية. والنهارده طبعا سعداء جدا بفعاليتين مرتبطين ببعض، وهما اطلاق سلسله التغير الفلاحي والدراسات الفلاحيه تبع مركز Transnational Institute ومركز سياده، وطبعا مشروع مسارات، واطلاق كتاب التعاونيات الزراعيه في العالم العربي. بنرحب بيكم مره ثانيه، ومعانا دكتور عمرو خيري.
دكتوره عبير.
طيب انا اعتقد كده عربي ولا نبتدي انجليزي علشان ننجيج البانelists معانا. Good afternoon everyone. My name is Abeer Abazeed and I'm assistant professor now. It's got my PhD. So I'm in Cairo University and it's great to see many of my colleagues and friends here. As you just Angie mentioned, it is a long event. It's starting from now, which is traffic, school time. But I assure, it's until 8, you will find no traffic, inshallah, and you can pack safely. And also, I'm so excited about the two panels for this event, starting from launching the two or three books we have, and then having a deep discussion about cooperatives as a way to creating an alternative pathway as our host of the pathways beyond neoliberalism. For the first panel, we are here now. We are going to discussing the agrarian question, challenging 3 decades of neoliberal agrarian policies, and starting by the ICAS book series, and definitely Jun is going to exploring more and telling us more. But this event is hosted by our two main organizations, the Transnational Institute, TNI. I think many of you can see their flyers and books. And TNI usually is the home of activist scholars. Usually I can read and meet many friends and colleagues who are, when they are writing down, it is depending on their field work. So it is not something coming from every tower. And our the second host, besides the pathways, is SIYADA Network, أو شبكة سيادة. And SIYADA, I'm privileged, and I think where I met Jun and Amr, it is a network where the Global South can meet up, where Arab-speaking countries with African, North African countries can meet up and interact with what is happening in ecological struggle and other ecological networks around the world and Global South. On the other side, definitely how you know what does SIYADA mean. It's SIYADA coming from sovereignty and how the sovereignty issue, it is a very critical thing for how to restore sovereignty of people over their lands, over their resources, over their seeds, and especially what we are facing now after oh, okay, there is later on. So there is an Arabic translation, right? And أنا مش عارفة أقرأ الخط كويس.
عايزين يعني نقطة لوجستية بس، عايزين نوضح إن في ترجمة فورية لو حد محتاج ترجمة. السماعات موجودة في البوث اللي ورا.
Back to switch القناة الثانية. Let's get back to the work of SIYADA Network itself. It's SIYADA also the part of sovereignty. Like what SIYADA did in her seminars and her webinars as an offline and online, besides its statements and other books and articles. If you check the website, you can see how the basis changed after the 7th of October. So sovereignty, it is not only how, as we used to struggle regarding the seeds, regarding the land and resources, now we are talking about what's happening in Palestine, and to restore our or fighting this colonial settlement. On the other side, like, I don't know if this book is available as TNI or not, but our colleague Hamza Hamoshan has a very interesting study where he explaining in details and highlighting what is happening in Palestine as an ecocide, not only the term using as genocide in Palestine. But I believe Jan and Jun, they are going to discuss more and relating our struggle with what is happening in Palestinian struggle. Because we don't have a long time, but what I'm planning to do is to introduce our panelists when they are starting to their intervention, because everyone has a very interesting contribution, and it will be harsh to just citing and reciting what they did. And now I just know that Jan has 2 PhD, not 1 PhD, so it's a long bio. So let me to start with, we have Jun Borras. He is going to start our discussion today, and then Jan Douwe, and then my colleague and friend Amr Khairy will be the discussant. Then we are going to Q&A, and as mentioned now, there is a translation, so feel free to ask your question in Arabic or in English as you would like. Jan, John, beside many things and many insightful discussion we had through SIYADA Network, and also how Jan is genuine struggle and activism when he explaining and sharing with us his activism. But on the other side, Jan has, John, sorry, today is, John, he is the editor of the series, and he is a professor of Agrarian Studies at the International Institute of Social Studies, ICAS, in The Hague. And also he is the journal of the Peasants study, one of the top cited and the main journal in the field. John, he is a recipient of the European Research Council Advanced Grant for his research project, Commodity Land External Reshaping, 5 Spheres of Global Social Life, Food, Climate Change, Politics. I think it might be something missing in this bio. And also you are the distinct professor at the China Agriculture University in Beijing, and also member in TNI, and has a different publication and different books, and one of I like more, it's the Scholar Activism and Land Struggles, which is released in 2023 with Jennifer Franco, and now you are also working with Jennifer on the land and the climate change politics, which is coming by the Cambridge University Press. Jan, 10 minutes, 15, sorry, John, 10 minutes, 15, less, more.
Thank you.
Would you like to stand or?
Confusing with June and Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. My first time in Egypt, and I'm so many people that I've met in different moments, in different places, are here. So it's a very special moment for me to be here, personally and intellectually and politically. I've heard so much of the American University of Cairo with very high kind of respect and regards to many of the researchers and scholars that are very world-renowned and influential in the field, at least in my field, in Critical Agrarian Studies. So I'm very happy to be here. And with Jan Douwe, for the launch of these books. Now, my task today is very easy. In a major, big rockstar concert, our role is more of like curtain raiser, so to warm up the crowd for the main event, which is Douwe's main event. So, my main task is to introduce about the series, the background of the book series. The book series is it's like little books on big issues. How can we collapse in a very small books, things that are complex and huge? It's very much on the topic of agrarian change and peasant studies in that kind of context. We imagined this one 18, 20 years ago. Fast forward 2025, we've got 12 volumes in the series. It's not very much because the translation to non-English editions is quite a challenge. So now it's in 14 languages. So it's something special. The idea is to come up with state-of-the-art books, smaller kind of books that are scientifically rigorous, accessible in different senses, accessible in the way that they are being written. If you read a Henry Bernstein regular journal article, it takes, at least for me, it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 times to read to understand 50% of what he's trying to say. It's like he's not your accessible type of writer. So we convinced him, can you write something accessible that not only the academics can read, but also social movement activists, peasant movement activists can read. So it's accessible in that manner, but also accessible in a way that, it's open access as much as possible, as they are available in paperback. Politically relevant things that are important to interpret the world in various ways in order to change them into something better. So these are tools of analysis that are important for political change. Highly affordable, state-of-the-art, something like that synthesizes. It's impossible for peasant movement activists to read 100 journal articles written about this particular topic. Can it be concised, synthesized in a state-of-the-art, shortish kind of accessible way? So state-of-the-art, but going beyond it, focusing on conceptual tools of analysis, meaning it's not about a super exciting topic about this and that, here and there, but about the tools of analysis, which means it cannot be easily dated. It's durable. So a book here, book 1, published 15 years ago, is just as fresh and original as today, 15 years after, as we expect that 25 years from now will remain just as fresh and original because they focus on the conceptual tools of analysis. And then in multiple languages, partly to demolish this apartheid in terms of linguistic barriers to democratizing knowledge, especially in the brutal kind of Anglophone dominated global knowledge politics. So that's the very idea of this small book series that a small collective of ours crazily brainstormed 20 years ago, get started 18 years ago, and now, fast forward, we have 12 volumes at the moment, 3 more volumes coming up in 2026, now available in 14 languages, and for the first time, it will be launched in the Arabic edition. Those of you who are interested in the more of about the series, I just prepared this thing here. Now, the English edition of this one is published originally by a very progressive small press in Canada called Fernwood Books. It's also the publisher of a very important journal called Socialist Register by Leo Panich and other progressive scholars. But later it joined forces with Practical Action Books based in the UK, a small progressive publisher. and now it's we are able to manage to have everything available in affordable paperback, but also in open access. All the 12 volumes in English are available open access in this site. And today, with SIYADA's intervention, we are launching the Arabic edition through the first 3 books at the moment today. So it's about tools of analysis in intellectual traditions on different themes in critical agrarian studies. Book 1 is a classic orthodox Marxist analysis of class-oriented agrarian change. Book 2 is like the flip side, or the one that engages a lot with historically with a Leninist conception of agrarian change, and this is the Chayanovian explanation of agrarian change, or sometimes derogatorily they are referred to as the agrarian populist perspective. And Douwe is one of the most important thinkers in the world in that tradition. Book 3 is on the theory of food regimes by no other than one of the 2 inventors of the theory, who is Philip McMickael. Philip McMickael and Henry Bernstein, unfortunately, are having some health issues and could not join us. But Douwe is very supportive of being here. So this is a collective project of up to about 30 universities and different publishers worldwide. So it's not a commercial undertaking with funding or something. There's no funding for this one. It's like self-funded. And a lot of translation are a collective type of community initiatives. And these are some of the names of the collaborators in different languages. These are the 12 volumes in English, quite colorful and nice. The next 3 volumes coming up, one is on degrowth. That would be volume 13. Volume 14 would be on human, non-human relations, focusing on human and livestock relations. And volume 14 will be on nature matrix. It's a critique of capitalist conservation approaches. So quite amazing and fascinating collection there. Just to wrap it up, it's not out of the blue that we just wanted to have an interesting kind of a series of books and that we are putting together, but it has a broader kind of context in terms of its ideological moorings and political project in a more global internationalist kind of perspective. And this is to the realization of the fact that global knowledge politics, the way knowledge is produced, circulated, attributed, and used, is very much and profoundly undemocratic in terms of its character in the global circuits of knowledge politics. And we have to do something with it to democratize it in different ways. And this is a very small contribution to that bigger kind of intellectual and political campaign that we are trying to do. So this, what it is, and just this is also taking a position that, as we said, it's not just about interpreting the world in various ways, as Marx would put it, but in order to change it, and not just in any ways of change, but to change it into something better, something more just, something fairer and kinder kind of world with less, if not no exploitation, oppression, plunder, and definitely no genocide anymore. A better world. In that sense, it's more in a scholar activist kind of tradition. This is taking off from the assumption that there are different knowledge holders and knowledge-making traditions and knowledge-making hubs. And academics based in universities are very important producers of knowledge and users of knowledge, but not the only important one. There are many knowledge holders and knowledge makers and knowledge users outside academia, local communities, social movements of peasants, of pastoralists in a different way. And we see it not from a vertical hierarchy perspective, which is like sometimes we acknowledge that there are diverse knowledge makers and knowledge users. But then we proceed to looking at it from a hierarchical perspective, privileging knowledge produced in academia, for instance, as the only scientific type of knowledge, and others are being dismissed as secondary type of folk knowledge in a very kind of dismissive and patronizing kind of way. Here, our take-off point is that not only that there's a diversity of knowledges, but that the relationship and how we see it is horizontal. They are different, but of equal value kind of knowledge. And this is an important take-off point from this volume, from this series, because if we want this to be read by peasant movements, by trade unionists, by local environmental activists, so that they know how their counterpart progressive academics based in academia are thinking, how they organize thoughts, so that they can engage with them on equal footing on what they are talking about. Sometimes both progressive social movement activists and academics are talking past each other without understanding each other. So this is one way to contribute to having a meaningful dialogue of what are you actually talking about. So part of the series that we will launch in, beginning next year is a series, accompanying series of this one, but that is a series that is written by social movement activists themselves. So to accompany, to have a really kind of dialogue. I'm about to close. We are knowing that this is a global circuits of knowledge, social movements, academia-based, their allies in academia, some autonomous research institutions could be allies together under certain conditions to push for a progressive way of producing knowledge and the idea of changing the world into something better. But they are not existing in isolation from the more dominant coalition of knowledge that represent exploitation, oppression, plunder, and genocide in many ways. Big allies of academia, big capital, academic capital, state philanthropy, big corporate philanthropy organizations. Almost always it's about knowledge alliances and coalitions. And for social forces of emancipation, of all sorts of emancipation, they also need to build alliances. Progressive academics need allies in social movements. Social movements need allies among progressive academics. This is where we locate this small book series. A very tiny contribution, but we think is an important contribution to building a more radical pole of knowledge coalition to change the world into something better. In academia today, they always thought that you want to get a research grant, your research should have a scientific, a social relevance, or positive societal change, or knowledge from academia that could transform society into something better, which is good. But how about also the flip side of that? Knowledge from outside academia that could transform academia to make it something better. And that is a very dialogical kind of way. And again, we locate this very modest initiative of ours in that broader kind of undertaking. So I end there, and I'll pass it on to you guys and to our main event, Douwe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jun. It is very impressive when you are mentioned it is not about knowledge diversity. We are equal, but in different venues. So it's yeah, very powerful to start to thinking how we can make solidarity across academia and non-academics people. Now we can move to Jan Douwe. And I'm trying to remind my Dutch. It's, you are an emeritus professor in Wageningen University. Hey, I did it. And you are also the chair of rural sociology and also the adjunct professor in China Agriculture University in Beijing. You are also a member of the board of Agroecology Europe. And what is interesting and related to our next panel, which is you are a board member of large local farmers cooperatives in Netherlands, which is, I think, a lot of questions can come in the next panel. You have a long list of publications, but one of them interesting, the sociology of farming, concepts and methods. It was in 2023. And the book we have today in Arabic version, The Art of Farming. Also, you have an interesting title book I haven't read yet, Philippine Crocodiles, Ecology, Culture and Conservation, which is very interesting. And we are interested to know about the art of farm today. Thank you. 2015, would you like to start?
Thank you very much, Abeer, for your nice words. You give me too much honor. This book about the crocodiles in the Philippines was written by my son, who happens to have nearly the same name as me, Jan van der Ploeg, and I'm Jan Douwe. And Douwe means also the old one. So that's it. I have to echo Jun Borras. I'm very, very grateful and very happy to be here in this important institute. I know that many of you are linked as social activists also to the social movements, especially in the countryside. And that is even an emotional issue these days, given the destruction, the ecocide, the destruction of Palestine agriculture, followed by the genocide, of course. We are always, our hearts linked to that. It's an emotional issue that will stay with us for a long time. I'm also happy that this little booklet has been translated. I'm very proud of it, and I feel it like an honor that I indirectly can contribute to your struggles. I will give a short speech, a modest speech, but I have to start with a clarification and with a confession. The clarification is that otherwise than some people sometimes think, Chayanovian theory is absolutely not at odds with Marxist theory. It's not at odds with class analysis. I consider it to be a further theoretical elaboration of it. Chayanovian analysis is a specific application of Marxist analysis and of class analysis and of politico-economic theory to the countryside and to agriculture. And the interesting thing is that it can be elaborated in such a way that it corresponds and with the current problems of current world agriculture. Then the confession. Sincerely, when I was a student, I tried to read Chayanov, but I have to confess that I did absolutely not understand it. And then I read it a second time when I was a PhD student, and I still was uncomfortable with it. And only later on, having had far more experience in the practice and dynamics of peasant agriculture, I started to understand it. And this seems a contradiction, but it's not. When I was a student, reading Chayanov, I was looking for a kind of mystery, for a kind of magic, for a very elegant theory, for complicated functions of production and what have you in theory, and I could not find it. But then I was looking for the wrong thing, because in reality, Chayanovian theory is having a kernel, is having a heart that is very solid, very sturdy, very simple points of view that are very strong. Yeah, in the simple points of departure of Chayanov, there is strength, there is beauty, and it gives power to its theory. What then are these points of departure? I'll give you one illustration. A simple, sturdy, but very important consideration of Chayanov is that in peasant agriculture, no wages are paid. Yeah, people are working, the family members are working, but they are not paid a salary. At the end of the day, they receive an income, a family income, or what Chayanov called a labor income, yeah, a remuneration for the work, a lot of work they had done. And hopefully it was a good income, but many times it was a misery. Yeah, they were exploited to the bones, they were suffering, but nonetheless they continued farming. They considered their life as a struggle to go ahead. And thus they went for better production, they started to cooperate, they were fighting, there have been peasant struggles over the ages. And from this consideration, no wage labor is being paid. He said, if there is no wage labor, then you cannot calculate profit inside peasant agriculture. And if there is no profit to be calculated, then you can, the purpose of farming never can be profit maximization. And if there are not these things, no wage labor, no profit, then there is no capital neither. To understand well, there are capital goods, the barns, the seeds, the animals, the productive fields, that is the fields that are being made productive. Yet these are all capital goods, but there is no capital relation. There is no capital as a relation of exploitation. Yeah, and that's a very solid starting point. But then, next one, we are still with Jun. Here is Chayanov. You see, he's a nicely looking fellow. He was a revolutionary. He was a social activist. He was very much involved in peasant struggle in Russia, in Tsarist Russia. He helped to create many thousands of peasant cooperatives of the horizontal type. And apart from being a scholar and a social activist, yes, he was also a writer. He enjoyed life. He traveled through Europe. He knew other agricultures. He was even knowledgeable about the horrible agriculture in South Africa, where you already at that time you had apartheid. He was knowledgeable about American agriculture, and he elaborated a theory that reflects, for the first time in history, I would argue, the dynamics of peasant agriculture. Here you have his starting point. His argument is, if it's not profit guiding the development of production, what then is the guiding principle? Well, again, very simple but very strong. There is a downward running curve. He called it utility. Utility is the benefits of farming, yeah, the satisfaction the production is giving you, and this might be the food for the family, but it might also be the joy you have from it, or the leisure time that is indirectly being produced, or in a completely monetized economy, it's your monetary income. But the point is, this utility curve is sloping down. Yet once you are at a certain level, then the next additional amount of production is having less utility. Yeah, and if you go further, it's even having less utility. Then there is another curve that is drudgery, that is the effort it takes you to realize a certain production, to be under the burning sun, or in my country, to be in very cold, wet fields. Yeah, and you're tired and you're hungry, but you have to continue. And in the end, well, it becomes heavier and heavier, so the line is going up. And then the argument of Chayanov is every peasant family has to assess an equilibrium. And that determines the level of production. Yeah, you go to the point E1, where utility and drudgery are more or less in balance. Yeah, and that gives a level of production of P1. I will elaborate a bit on that immediately. This is having an immediate political relevance. It means that in peasant farming is oriented at assessing the best possible income, the best possible labor income. And this is a completely different principle that is central in capitalist neoclassical agrarian economics that says, no, farmers have to go to the highest return on invested capital. And these are two different things. Yeah, and Chayanov centered on definitely on the labor side, and purposes linked with that. Well, in reality, it's not as simple as reflected here. There are many, many different balances to be assessed in peasant farming. For instance, between the time you dedicate to the farm and the time you dedicate to labor elsewhere. Yeah, which is very important in the global south, in many, well, in my country, in the global north as well. You have to assess which part of the production goes to the market, which part is to go to the family to be consumed or to be exchanged as labor. When it comes to the red arrows, yeah, representing capital goods, where do investments come from? Are they labor investments, or are it savings obtained through the selling of production, or does it stem from the income of other non-agricultural activities? Yeah, it's time and again it's balances that are to be assessed. They cannot follow the logic of the market. Yeah, very often they rather resist the logic of the market. They find the equilibrium that fits as best as possible their own needs and perspectives. Then you might think, well, does this mean that anyway this is static? You reach an equilibrium and there the peasant family is satisfied or not, but anyway, that's their equilibrium. It seems to suggest a kind of stagnation. This is absolutely not the case, because both utility and drudgery are socially defined. And this is a very important point. They are socially defined categories. Yeah, they are not imposed from the outside. They are defined by the peasant families and peasant communities themselves. They might redefine utility. For instance, if you think, if I work well now my fields this year, yeah, it might render me now a good harvest, but it might render me in the future also extra utility. Yeah, so I work it better, I construct terraces, I make better irrigation, I improve my seeds, and so on and so forth. Or I work for more fields so that my children can have a better life in the future. Yeah, so they redefine utility towards the dotted line and large utility. And by doing so, a new equilibrium is assessed, and that comes with extra production from P1 to P2. And this applies to drudgery as well. If drudgery is reduced, then a new equilibrium comes. So you see the equilibrium move from E1 to E2 to E3, and in the meantime production increases as well. Yeah, so this shows the inherent dynamics of peasant agriculture. Now you might ask, is this just nice lines? Is this just theory, or can you recognize it in the fields? I will give you examples from China, a few examples. On top you see a peasant woman in an electric tractor, a small tractor, not the heavy ones, the diesel ones. Yeah, but this is very comfortable for women. They use it to go to the market, to sell products, or to bring products, the remnants of the harvest of sweet potato, to their farm to feed their pigs. You see small, in the picture in the midst, you see applied tools. This all means decreasing drudgery. Yeah, decreasing drudgery is not an abstraction, but you can recognize it in the field. And then on the bottom you see peasant farmers at the same village processing their sweet potatoes into what the Chinese people call glass noodles, with a far higher price. This means increasing utility, you see. And very often this implies these things an interplay between the state and peasant farmers. On top you see researchers, apart from me, I was just visiting them, researchers improving the Camellia oleifera, the tea oil plant, which is used for the production of oil in the house for household use. Yeah, and its productivity, its oil contents have been increased unbelievably. So this is enlarging utilities, just as the construction of terraces you see in the midst, and peasant markets getting a higher price. Yeah, also enlarging utilities. So, and these might seem small steps, but multiplied by the hundred thousands or by the millions. Yeah, and mind you, in China you have 200 million peasant households. So multiplying these small steps by the millions and doing this year by year, you get the enormous growth of productivity and production that we have seen in Chinese history. Here you have it symbolized, the upgoing line. It's corrected for inflation. From the early 1950s, after the Chinese creation of the land reform in China by Mao Zedong and the party, the enormous increase in productivity, in which also the introduction of the household responsibility system in '79 played an enormous role. And this growth is in absolute contrast with the stagnation in sub-Saharan Africa, where the production per capita continues to decrease. Yeah, this is a very remarkable contrast. This is not a little thing. This is what helped to make China into a very powerful nation. And if you look to the flip side of this, China also represented the same agricultural growth, an enormous decrease, the red line, decrease in rural poverty, whilst the poverty in sub-Saharan Africa in absolute terms continues to increase. Yeah, so we are not talking about peanuts, but about forces that can impact very strongly on the world. Chayanov, apart from this, also his work represents a huge theoretical production. I already mentioned some elements. Peasant farm labor is not wage labor. The resource base, you see it here, the fields, the fences, the terraces, the different crops, the labor power, the knowledge they present. The resource base is not capital, it's patrimony. It's patrimony of the family. Yeah, they own it. The Chinese peasant households are the ones who own it. Profit maximization is not the main driver. Yeah, and when it comes to class analysis, peasants pop here very clearly as the third class. Yeah, they have the means of production, and at the same time they do the work. So alongside the wage workers, the proletarians, and the capitalists, you have a third class, and the peasantry is an important part of it. Of course, there is not only peasant agriculture in the world. You show this in a beautiful painting of Ao Sung, a very gifted Chinese artist. On the other side of the river here, you see capitalist agriculture. On this side of the river, peasant agriculture. Both are present currently in China, although the absolute majority is, of course, peasant agriculture. You see, they differ in many respects, but it shows also the contradiction. You show here the pumps, yeah, that take the water in order to bring it to the capitalist farm enterprises. So, and this is at the detriment of peasant agriculture. Yeah, and this can become, or is already becoming, a clash. Peasant agriculture is connected to capitalism. It's exploited by capital, but at the same time, it is resisting it. Even in Brazil, for instance, the peasant movements organize what they call economies of resistance. Yeah, their economies, their peasant agriculture is in such a way, is organized in such a way that it helps to resist, to contribute to the important struggles taking place in that country. Then I go to a fifth point, the major contributions that peasant agriculture can deliver. And these are mentioned in an important report of the high level of panel of experts of the FAO in Rome. And it very clearly points out when it comes to food security, to economic development, to employment and income, to productivity, to sustainability, but also to landscape, biodiversity, to emancipation and to culture. Peasant agriculture can contribute, and it contributes far more than capitalist agriculture. Yeah, so it was clearly said also by Professor Swaminathan from India, who was heading the high-level panel of experts of that time. The world really needs a new deal to support the peasantry instead of oppressing them and marginalizing them. Anyway, the basic argument is that the emancipation of the peasantry results in ongoing growth of agricultural production, and the growth of agricultural production helps the emancipation of the peasantry. This is the wheel that made agricultural history move. And the very beautiful thing is that it's now being transformed currently in the following one. The emancipation of the peasantry increasingly passes by and passes through agroecology, a new form of farming that is in strong contrast with capitalist agriculture and oppression it brings. Sixth point, Chayanov always worked very closely together with peasant organizations. He created with them hundreds, if not thousands, of cooperatives, so-called horizontal cooperatives, not the vertical ones, but horizontal ones of cooperating peasants having their own farm. And one could argue that this is developing currently increasingly into the construction of peasant markets, cooperatively managed peasant markets. Here you have an image of Japan. In Japan there are over 15,000 peasant markets. And the nice thing, of course, is that in each peasant market, with fresh foods, beautiful foods, fruits, products, fruits also, drinks, whatever you want, meat, fish. There are also photographs of the producers themselves, yeah? So the consumers, they can even go and visit. It personalizes far more again farming and food consumption. I come to the last point that to underpin the relevance of Chayanovian theory. That's land reform. He contributed to land reform in Chayanov in Russia at that time, 1917, and he theoretically elaborated the concept of land reform. He argued, of course, it's to be redistributive. Yeah, this famous slogan, land to the tiller, the land to the working people, was first elaborated by him. But he goes further. He says it is to be democratic, it is to be egalitarian, and it's to be inclusive. It needs to benefit all people in the countryside, not just a few of them. And at the same time, it is to develop the productive forces. It's to improve the working and living conditions of the countryside. And it is to make more democratic the distribution of national income between cities and countryside, industry and agriculture. Why is this important? Let me go back to land reform that started in Egypt in 1952. The data of that time was that the average ratio between a family and the available land, the so-called land-man ratio, was 1.8 acre per peasant family. And then the land reform planned at that time considered to give to the people 2.6 acre. Yeah, that was 44% above the average, meaning that not everybody could receive land, not everybody could continue to farm. Yeah, as a famous study of Doreen Warner said, some displacement is needed. Now, if you look through recent history, this some displacement became more displacement and even more displacement until land reforms now are an instrument for exclusion, for subordinating farming even more to the logic of capital. This graph shows that initially there was a distance of 44%, but then going to Iran, to Tunisia, to Chile, to Peru, and later on to South Africa, to many other countries, the economic holding, the amount of land the family could obtain, and the average relation increased more and more and more. There has been one major, and this is also documented, I should say, in studies by other scholars, Bente Yun, for instance, from China. If you are interested, you can obtain these data. Anyway, there's one major exception at national level, and it has been China. Everybody, every family received a piece of land. It was inclusive, it was egalitarian, it was democratic, and this is at the root of the enormous growth of Chinese agriculture and for the development of productive forces over there and the improvement of lives in the countryside. There have been later on regional experiences that resulted out of peasant struggle, like in Brazil, like in Peru, and in Portugal earlier, that the not having land reform that is in line with the logics of capital accumulation, but instead bringing it back to farmers, peasant farmers themselves, resulting in completely different relations and dynamics. And that is another merit of Chayanov, that he made clear that land reform is to go the peasant way, or it is to obey to capital logic. In synthesis, I started asking, is there relevance? Is it still relevant in our times, Chayanovian approach? I hope that I've shown that is probably, most probably, more relevant than ever. I thank you. I will stop here. I thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's very interesting, and it's also to rethinking about some, for granted some concepts we usually using, and we have some narratives about that, and especially when you are mentioning about how utility is a social constructed one, and also the redistribution issue. And it might be later to asking about working people, land for working people, because I'm just reading Isa Chevji, and he using of working people rather than working class. Now, for our discussant, Amr Khairy, it's a dear friend. He is a postdoctoral fellow at SIDAJ and the French Institute for Oriental Archaeology in Cairo. Also, Amr, he is our historian in agriculture, production, and technology in 19th century in Egypt, and the use of renewable energies in agriculture in contemporary Egypt. Amr is one of translators of one of the books, Henry books, of ICAS series. Yes, it's a book of class dynamics of agrarian change. Also, Amr has a very interesting, as I'm interested in water, has a very interesting article about water in Siwa and how to use water resources in Siwa. Your time.
Thank you, Abeer. As you said, my role here is a discussant. I'm here to start by asking a few questions to Douwe and then open the floor for everyone. I'm sure you have many questions and interested in many things you said about Chayanov. For one thing, I have been working on the history of Egyptian agriculture in the 19th century from specific perspectives, but not from the perspective of peasant studies. So I started recently to be a student of peasant studies, and I had a couple of courses with Jun Borras, who is standing in the back of the room. And then I have just met Douwe, and I was reading his book for the second time before this event. And I'm really struck by the analytical and theoretical width and breadth in what Douwe brings from Chayanov and adds to the questions of peasant differentiation and as analytical toolkits we have for understanding the political economy of the countryside and peasants. So I will probably have 3-4 questions maximum, and then we'll open the floor in 15 minutes. So Douwe, thank you very much for your presentation. First of all, I have a question. I wanted to know more about, well, let's frame it this way. So you told us a little bit about what is this thing called peasant farm and peasant agriculture. And you presented it as something that can be talked about and accounted for in concrete terms. With, for example, talking about the balance between utility and the drudgery on the farm, and how the peasants are not working according to capitalist logic. There is another logic, and it's pretty much present as you presented it on the screen. But let me ask you this. I'm sorry if the question is a little bit annoying. So we know more now about how the peasant farm is working, but can, in this age, in this time of global change and climate change and global warming, can small farmers keep feeding the world? Aren't we becoming too many? Climate change is causing crop failures and posing other challenges. Don't we need bigger doses of technology and big farming and big technology for making food? How would peasant farms and small farmers respond to this challenge, the demographic challenge and the climate change challenge?
Yeah, thank you for this question, which is very much to the point, of course, and debated all over the place these years. Yes, peasants can very well feed the world. They can do it far better than capitalist agriculture for several reasons. Already, if you make a serious analysis and taking into account ecology, then it shows time and again that the yields per hectare, the yields per animal in peasant agriculture, if it's allowed to develop it itself well, are higher than in capitalist agriculture. Yeah, this shows everywhere in the world, but is often misrepresented by the major institutions, the major bourgeois institutions. But looking to it well, it is doing better. And this is underpinned by the Chinese experience, which shows, as a matter of fact, they can feed this very large nation. As a matter of fact, China is having only 10% of the arable land in this world. Nonetheless, it produces 20% of all food that is consumed in the world. Yeah, and this already refers to its enormous capacity. This is one reason. A second reason is that it is far more resilient. Whilst the capitalist agriculture stops when returns are getting low due to market-induced risk, due to market volatility, whatever, then they stop producing, and then you have barns and cattle houses standing empty. Peasant agriculture is continuing. Third argument is peasant agriculture goes there where capital never can go. It goes to the wetlands. Yeah, and when you enter there with heavy machinery, this goes bloops down and you never see it again. It's drowning. It goes to the mountains where capital never will go because it's too difficult. It goes into the tropics, yeah, where they can, what capital can do, it can only cut down the forest, but it cannot produce within the forest and with the forest. So it can go to many, many places in the world where capital cannot go. So taking all this together, yes, it can feed the world and it can do far better than capital can ever do. And then when it comes to technology, peasant agriculture is not hostile to technology. It loves improvements, it loves new techniques as long as it fits with the internal dynamic, as long as it improves utility and it reduces drudgery. Yeah, all right. And then the problem with current technology is that it is based on fossil energy and thus contributes to climate heating, and it's exactly what we do not need at the moment in the world. So we need a selective kind of technology development that is in line with the needs and prospects of the peasant population. The drama of our universities, I know them, I belong to Wageningen University, is that they go for an agriculture without nature and without human labor. Yeah, they produce through genetic modification and artificialized nature, and through robotization and big data and artificial intelligence, they move out labor. But that will become a nightmare for mankind. So that's not the way we have to go. And this, the more underlines the point already made by Jun. Yeah, we have to use outside forces and outside knowledge to, yes, to decolonize our universities and to decolonize agronomy and associated blocks of knowledge.
Again, Douwe, when I started looking into the field of peasant studies, I first, of course, I came across Henry Bernstein's work and elaborations on class analysis in the countryside, peasant differentiation, and how everybody's saying in different ways that we need to stop romanticizing the peasant, and we need to stop treating the rural communities as a monolithic category of just one peasant, and so we need to look into how the peasant form different classes or belong to different classes. So we have this strong focus on peasant differentiation in peasant studies, critical peasant studies. When I read your book again and look into the Cheyenovian balances, because we not only have utility and drudgery balance, we have other sorts of balances and they work together in different ways. So we have this whole different world of analysis, this very different analytical tool, which I wrap my mind around it as a kind of a micro-analysis or an analysis that looks at the farm in particular and how it is related to bigger processes. But then there remains a question, because in the book you say Cheyenovian analysis doesn't contradict or is not mutually exclusive with class analysis. So how would you describe the relationship between Cheyenov's insights and peasant differentiation and class analysis? How are they related in terms of scale, in terms of which theoretical lens is better for which situation to look at? Because we have many scholars here in the room, and I think you might be interested in knowing more about applicability.
Yes, once again, thank you for this question, and you're pointing to a key issue in agrarian studies, the issue of differentiation. There are two points of view here. It are two theoretical approaches to read the data, to read what is happening in the countryside. The one says we see peasants moving out, And we understand this as class differentiation, as part of a process that will enlarge the bigger farms because they have better opportunities. They will be turned in capitalist farms. And smaller farms, they will be outcompeted and become proletarians, partly working on the big farms of the capitalist farms, the ones who survived. That's cost class analysis. And then in Chayanov stressed very much the demographic differentiation, saying very often in the life of peasant families it's like this. The family, the children grow up, and at the end of the day, when the father and mother are not able to continue anymore, the land is divided, the patrimony is divided between the children. And then they start at a modest level, cannot be different. And then both men and women, they work hard to develop the farm and to enlarge it, to make it economically stronger. So it grows and then it is repeated. So being large or being small is not a definite destination, but part of a cyclical movement. Now the point, of course, is that we see in today both class differentiation and demographic differentiation. And what we should do is theoretically combine these two modes of reading the reality, analyzing it, and to turn it into an effective theory that also can help strengthen peasant movements and can help strengthen peasant agriculture. We should not forget that there still is a lot of inflow, the young people entering agriculture, trying to develop their farm. That happens all over the world. That even gives rise to what has been called new peasantries, which is a strong phenomenon all over the world, and which should be supported, of course. It's a promise for the future. And at the same time, you see the rise of big food empires, also here in the Arabic world. I know examples from Morocco, where huge Dutch and French capital groups control 1,000 hectares, for instance, of horticultural land under irrigation, and they can move through the port of Tangiers the products directly to Europe. You have 24 hours after harvest, they might be on the table in Western Europe. Now, they have an enormous strength, but you see both. The two sides of the equation. There is not only class analysis, not only demographic differentiation. The two are there, and the one, well, they represent both destruction and resistance and resurgence. So we cannot look to one side, we have to combine it, and we have to go beyond old controversies. And there is a very practical relation to this. We have to stop quarreling about all kinds of issues. Is it like this or is it like that? And create new factions. If there are different point of views, we should say, hey, can we turn that into a research question? Let's see in practice how it is. Some people think, for instance, Henry Bernstein and me, we would big opponents. No, on the other hand, we are very good friends, as our comrade Jun knows also and can testify. We should go beyond these old controversies. As simple as that, but as difficult as that as well. I mean, it's not easy. You have to admit that you can be wrong, that you are not the owner of absolute truths. We have to learn to be more modest. Okay, stop. No, you have your own mic.
Okay, I will ask one last question and then we open the floor. This one is, I think, related to cooperatives, because we're going to have, in the next panel, we're going to talk about cooperatives in the new edited volume. Jun, you say in the Douwe, you say in the book that somewhere you speak about cooperatives as, instead of creating added value to the members of the collectives, the cooperatives, at the moment, cooperatives are more successful in creating new commons or recommoning. So what do you mean exactly by that? Because in Egypt, we tend to think about cooperatives as a solution for peasants unionize, work together towards specific, fulfilling specific interests, and that's the only way to keep the farm and keep living off the farm. But now we also have the question of the tendency of cooperatives to re-common or to create new commons. What is the difference between value and commons?
Yeah, a special expression of that is the rise of what we call in Europe territorial cooperatives that look very much to peasant communities as we know them from South America. These are not cooperatives that are focusing on products only, yeah, like processing tomatoes in these little cans and then export it and try to get a good price for it, or milk or whatever product, but they defend the territory and the community by saying this territory is ours and we are proud to be a part of it, to have created it, and we will defend it, we will defend the local economy, and we are sure that we have better solutions than agrarian policy can ever impose. So if landscape or the ecology or biodiversity or whatever are to be defended, we will do. Yeah, because we can do so because we control the territory. At the same time, these territorial cooperatives are a means of resistance and a constructive means for contributing to a future that is more agreeable, yeah, that gives a fuller choice for men and women to develop their own identities, to work in pleasant ways. So this is really an important turn that has made the notion of cooperative kicking and alive again. Yeah, it's not buried in the past. The cooperation between people, between men and women, between different peasants, peasant communities. It's all over the place again and can contribute again to emancipation. And I'm very happy that later on this afternoon this new book will be presented and discussed on cooperatives. So I'm happy to know that you're also in Egypt and in this northern part of the continent discussing issues like this.
A space. So now we have, I think, almost 1 hour, which is great. Huh? I don't know how many have. Yes, 1 hour, and then we're starting. It's please stop. It's to start up. So how many would like to? I'm playing my class. It's 1, 2, 3, and John. You don't want? Because I misspelling your name, or it's I forget your name. It's. So I think, okay, we can start in one by one. So it's backbenchers. Huh? It's who's first here?
أنا هتكلم بالعربي. أنا اسمي هيثم خيري، برضو خيري، وأنا صحفي في الأهرام، متابع جيد للشأن الزراعي ومزارع. يسعدني يبقى معايا يوسف رامز مزارع برضو. لينا بعض التجارب الفلاحية في مصر، وليا تحفظ صغير جدا فيما يخص الجمعيات التعاونية الزراعية في مصر. التجربة في مصر مختلفة شوية. الجمعيات التعاونية الزراعية في مصر للأسف مرتبطة أكتر بالدولة، وبالتالي هي ليها صبغة رسمية شوية. ففي مصر محتاجين يبقى في جمعيات يقودها شباب من المزارعين الجدد بصيغة أو بأخرى. عندي سؤال ليه علاقة بالجمعيات التعاونية الزراعية. هل الدكتور مطلع عليها في مصر ولا لا؟ كيف يمكن تطويرها؟ وشكرا.
أنا عندي بس سؤال حوالين، أنا عارفة إن إحنا هنناقش التعاونيات الزراعية في الجلسة الثانية أكتر، صح؟ في يعني موضوع نمط الزراعة الفلاحية ده، مش الزراعة الرأسمالية، مرتبط قوي بالنظام السياسي والاقتصادي للدولة. فأنا مستغربة إن النظامين الأساسيين، ده ممكن يبقى عدم اطلاع جيد مني طبعا، فإن النموذجين الأساسيين اللي بيتضرب بيهم المثل في فرق كبير قوي بينهم سياسيا واقتصاديا زي البرازيل والصين. انا ليه مهتمه بده؟ احنا في مصر كل شويه بنبعد اكتر عن نموذج الزراعه الفلاحيه حتى في الوادي القديم. اولا انا عندي سؤال، ازاي ده يحصل في الاستصلاح؟ لانه مصر الوادي القديم فيها بيضيق والناس بتزيد، فازاي نمط الزراعه الفلاحيه ممكن يبقى في الاستصلاح في الصحراء في المساحات الشاسعه الجرداء دي اللي هي بتاعه الاستصلاح؟ بس حتى جوه الوادي القديم النمط الزراعه من اجل التصدير بتتناقض مع الزراعه الفلاحيه، القيود الرهيبه على التعاونيات اقتصاديا وقانونيا، التخلي الدوله عن دورها في الدوره الزراعيه وفي دعم مدخلات الزراعه وكل الكلام، يعني السياسات العامه اللي بتتبناها الدوله اقتصاديا وسياسيا بتبعدنا عن نمط الزراعه. حتى لو عملنا تعاونيات هتتعمل برضه بنفس النمط الاقتصادي اللي هي بتهدف للتصدير وكده. أنا عايزة أفكر في أنماط سياسية مختلفة، إزاي نقرب شوية من النموذج ده، لأن هو مش هيتخلق لوحده، لازم يبقى فيه سياق نقدر ندفع بيه فيه يعني. شكرا.
Jan, you have some alternatives coming from China or coming from your case studies? I think it's... okay. ده خبير ترجمة. You would like to collect it rather than to mention Sur.
Thank you. أنا كنت أحب sorry English وعربي. So I want to have a couple of questions, clarification. I'm not from the agriculture sector, I'm economic and then finance. So the story is not familiar to me that much, but I want to understand how they solve with the problem of fragmentation and in the ownership in China. That's relevant to us as well, when the people is growing, but the land is still the same. So the second thing I want to be interested about, because the cooperatives of banking sector, because what I'm thinking or what I know a bit is like they are more like Germany. They have Sparkasse or cooperative in banking. So that they are non-profit banks that goes and lend and geographically restricted, so they must develop the local economy. I'm not sure how that is actually playing out in the fields in China. And yeah, okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jan, for your interesting presentation. I'm just wondering, to what extent do you believe that the Chinovian perspective and the Chinese experience of rural development are now applicable to other countries and regions outside China? Because my impression is that there is a Chinese exception, and the case is very different in regions and countries, for instance, like Egypt. Because when you look to Egypt, you find after centuries, 2 centuries, of failed urbanization and failed industrialization, we ended up with rural communities and rural societies which lost most of their original components, and the extended family is no longer effective, or right now the individual values, capitalist values, and even the nuclear family are the main features of our rural communities. So I'm not sure if the Chinovian perspective right now would work in our countries. I think at least a significant social change social change must be achieved before talking about applying the Chayanovian perspective in our rural development. Thank you.
أتكلم بالعربي. أولا مساء الخير، طبعا شكرا جزيلا على العرض الشيق، ولكن أنا عندي تساؤلين. التساؤل الأول هو مرتبط بالتشينوفية اللي هي واحدة من النظريات، هي في نظرية مش نظرية في الحقيقة، هي عبارة عن تكتيك للممارسة اللي بيحاول يخلق توازن داخل المجتمع الريفي وبيخلق طرق لإنتاج الغذاء بطرق مختلفة. لكن في الحقيقة هي كان يعني واحدة من الحاجات اللي تم انتقاد النظر المشروع ده على أساسها هو كونه فوقي، لا يعمل اعتبار، لا يعد اعتبار للواقع المحلي. وده يمكن اختلافي مع طرحك الأخير فيما يتعلق بفكرة أن التجربة الصينية أو التجارب المختلفة ممكن تطبق هنا، أو التجربة التشينوفية، على أنها يعني هو كان شخص بالتأكيد قدم إسهامات عديدة ممكن الاستفادة بيها في محاولة مزجها بالواقع المحلي لكل بلد من البلاد. لكن دي اللي كانت واحدة من الاعتراضات الأساسية عليه يمكن من أيام الكومنترن الثالث الأول يعني. وبالتالي أعتقد نحن محتاجين يعني نشوف إزاي في تقديري أن التجربة ثرية تحتاج أن ننظر إليها نظرة محلية أكتر. الجانب الآخر هو بس فيما يتعلق بالصين، حسب علمي يعني وحسب ما وصل إلينا أنه هناك بعض التجارب الأقرب للإقطاع يعني في الحقيقة. أنت بتتكلم عن مجموعات فلاحية بتعمل مقابل الحياة وفقط. بالتأكيد هو أفضل قليلا عن الوضع الرأسمالي، فكرة استغلال الرأسمالي بشكله الحالي وبشكله الدائم يعني، ولكن هناك جانب من جوانب الإقطاع قد تمارس فيه، أو يعني شكل من أشكال الإقطاع بتمارس في الصين. فمش عارف أنت هل خدت التجارب دي أو رأيك فيها إيه؟ شكرا.
Hello, I have a very simple question. I'm still a student and I'm a business student, so I have a related to business question. Well, since the era of Muhammad Ali, farmers got to be, lands got displaced to farmers. That's what I understand. And things got better and better, but the thing is, we are talking about the freedom of peasants and how they should be families and so, and get away from capitalism and so, and how the Chinese experiment was very successful due to the numbers and so. What I'm talking about here, we have a kind of free environment in Egypt for landing and crops. You can farm whatever you want, but that's a problem because we face a problem of surplus and deficiency. For example, a very recent example is tomatoes. What happened to the crops of tomatoes and how it was more cost, it had more cost farming it than selling it. Farmers lost a lot of their money and lost a lot of their capital income, and they even, some of them maybe went to loans and so on. That actually led them to lose their land. So an environment of freedom can eventually lead us to an environment of capitalism and so. So how can we process all this information and have freedom and still don't face the problem of deficiency and surplus? Companies and corporates can really analyze and can really forecast the needs of the market, so they can manage the corps and so. That's it.
Thank you. And here I will start giving answers. Otherwise, the sea of questions will flow all over me. And okay, there are several questions about cooperatives. And the problem, of course, is that in many parts of the world, apparently here also, cooperatives are controlled by the state, are used by the state as instruments to channel away the surpluses from the countryside to the cities. They are also used to control and to divide the rural population. And yes, when I'm talking about cooperatives, and this is in line with the Chayanovian approach, what is very important are the following questions. Who controls these cooperatives? Are it the members themselves? Or is it the state or big capital groups? Are they export-oriented and thus heavily dependent on world market, or are they having a wide array of different products that are in the first place meant for national markets and for the national needs, meeting the needs of the urban populations. And then, of course, also how is it dealing with ecology? Is it using nature, sustaining nature, enriching nature, or is it exploiting nature, resulting in ecological crisis, as there have been so many in the history of capitalist agriculture? And yeah, these questions cannot be theoretically resolved. They are resolved in practice through peasant struggle. Some other questions relate to China, for instance, saying, well, huge population and little land, so what about fragmentation? At first sight, yes. When I came for the first time in China, I learned that their unit to measure land is not hectare, is not acre, but mu. And they go 15 mus in 1 hectare. Yeah? This already gives you an impression. And then at that time, when I came for the first time, the average peasant farm was 5 mu only. Yeah, so microscopic. And then you first think, hey, this is impossible. Because you can never produce much, so you cannot save much. So without savings, you cannot invest. So this is meant to be backward and to be stagnant. But the opposite applies. And then you understand at the end that you cannot perceive this reality through the Western paradigm that starts with the question, how big is the land that you're working? But you need the other, let's say, a Chinese paradigm, which is also very close to the Chayanovian approach. What is being done with the land? Yeah, it's not important how much, but what is being done? Is it used in a responsible, intensive way, respectful for nature, etc., etc., using also means of cooperation wherever possible and wherever needed, and then things can function very well. And this, well, is illustrated in practice in many sides of the world. In France, there are beautiful studies from young PhD students who have studied these small, newly created peasant farms throughout France. Yeah, and they show clearly, they demonstrate clearly, these studies, that after difficult first 3 years of building up the networks and the knowledge, you can even after three years, you can have a very good income on micro enterprises of just 1 hectare. So it's not size that is decisive, but the market relations under which you operate and the way in which you use the land. Yeah, if you would only go for export production, 1 hectare is ridiculous. But if you produce vegetables, partly for the poor in the cities, partly for luxury restaurants able to pay high prices, you include, you have a multifaceted production. These youngsters prove that it can very well be done. Then another question regarding China referred to outside China, yeah, the question was, is this model applicable outside China? That is a very serious question indeed, because rural societies indeed have eroded in many places. Families once the very big extended families having considerable power are reduced now to nuclear families, and so on and so forth. And the same applies to well, to many aspects. The question is, can this be restored? No, of course not. But are there other ways that can again create vibrant rural societies? I would argue that once again, social movements are decisive. Mind you, and in Russia, before you had a feudal society, and you had the mir, the community, and a key argument of Chayanov, especially explicit in his later essays, is our peasantry is able to have a revolutionary role because they participated in the First World War. Yeah, they were the backbone of the Russian army. They came to know each other, they fraternalized, and they returned to their villages not to submit and to be subordinated anymore to patriarchal relations. Yeah, it was a new peasantry, yeah, that had the courage to enter into revolutionary activities, to build cooperatives, to change the land use. And one could argue that currently, for instance, Via Campesina worldwide is another learning ground for peasants that restores courage, that restores pride, that restores cooperation, solidarity, and that creates the kind of cultural repertoire, the culture and the networks that might help to create a new modern peasant agriculture. So once things are lost, they are lost. Yeah, but there might be new ways to create the supportive mechanisms that allow for peasant agriculture. Peasant economy today, yeah, from a business point of view, also is facing awkward conditions. Yeah, they are exploited to the bones. Prices are under big pressure. But then, here again, new responses have been developed. Yeah, if we are very much squeezed, yeah, by low prices on the markets of our products and high prices for the inputs we need, well, let's make then a type of farming that does not need anymore these very expensive inputs. Yeah, and exactly that is agroecology. Let us use nature instead of chemistry and very expensive inputs. Let's create our own peasant markets instead of using the markets controlled by capital. Yeah, you can face these and struggle against these awkward conditions, and in practice, very practically speaking, lower your costs and increase the prices, the benefits you get at the end of the day. So there are new ways to resist, to counteract, and that is in the end what peasant agriculture always has been through the ages. That is the capacity to face awkward conditions. Yeah, that has been so through the ages, and it continues to be so, and it's still there. Also because there is hardly no alternative. They have to construct alternatives themselves. Nobody will give them the proverbial free lunch. Or they struggle for it, or it's misery. And the good news, of course, is that worldwide are many scholar activists, social activists, movement that support them in these struggles.
Thank you, Jan. we may have a second round of questions. If any other questions, أسئلة أخرى, we still have time. And you have an opportunity. Fish, Angie. Fish. Okay. I have a question. Because it's usually when I'm thinking about agrarian question, I'm usually thinking from my discipline as IR. And I questioning what is usually Samir Amir talking about. It's about delinking and how to apply that on what you have mentioned. So how we can making delinking, especially building on the question of Amr, how now we have the climate change. You mentioned the case of Morocco and all of this process of the market and the business. So if we looking for the solidarity and the role of cooperatives like the Japanese one, but also we have this model, the process is working. So how can we apply or intermerge the concept of delinking with what is happening in the agrarian questions? This is one of my questions. Amr, you have a...
I also have a question that might be related to that. In your book, Douwe, you speak about two things. De-peasantization, where peasants have to leave their land for so many factors pushing them out. Meanwhile, we have re-peasantization. People who did not practice agriculture before are taking to the land and starting to be peasants. And I was just listening to you now, speaking about peasants need to find their way. They always have to find their way to make utility, to keep living, which is a very powerful thing. If we think about the Chayanovian framework, which is not about capital or profit in the traditional sense. So how do we make sense of de-peasantization and re-peasantization? What is going on?
عربي. طيب يعني استكمالا للنقاش، هو يعني في كتير من الامور تحتاج للمناقشه، يعني يحتاج جلسات كثيره حوالين القضيه المطروحه بالتاكيد. اتمنى يبقى في فرصه لده، لكن خلينا نمسك الحاجات الاساسيه كده ورؤوسها بشكل اساسي. طيب فيما يتعلق بفكره المشروع المطروح، هو ازاي نقدر نطبق هذه الآلية أو غيرها مع التحسين ومع مواكبتها للواقع المحلي دون وجود سيستم يستهدف بشكل أساسي أولا تحقيق السيادة الغذائية للبلد. إزاي نقدر نحقق سيادة؟ ما كانش في مشروع لدى مجموعات الفلاحين أو العاملين الزراعيين أو كل من يعني يقدم لنا الغذاء في تحقيق السيادة الغذائية، والمشروع ده لازم يبقى متبنى من النظام ذاته، نظام الحاكم. دون ذلك لا يمكن انك تضمن يبقى في آلية تعمل لصالح المجتمع القائم. وبالتالي الإشكالية الحقيقية هي مرتبطة بفكرة هل البداية من خلال انك تخلق تعاونيات او اشكال زراعة فلاحية على الارض تمكنك من انك تحقق المصالح المباشرة للفلاحين والمجتمع الأول أو دون أن تغير هذا النظام. يعني لو ما فيش نظام يقدر يحقق ده أو مستهدف ده أو عنده هدف أو عنده حتى الحث الوطني في حده الأدنى، بالتأكيد لا يمكن تحقيق ذلك.
Building on his point, as a farmer, I want, at the end of the day, I want many things, and one of the first things is to eat and drink and to provide my children shelter, an education, and have a sustainable life or a decent life. So, building on what he said, the environment in Egypt, as we mentioned, it's very complicated. It's very the prices has their ups and downs. A farmer doesn't forecast, doesn't analyze the market, doesn't say forecast what it should be farmed or not. So how could a farmer who is not maybe most of them are not have a high education. How can we reach a point where farmers can have the freedom and still farm crops that are needed, demanded, in a way that doesn't lead us to surplus or deficiency?
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. We are moving to the more theoretical level, and the concepts that can be operated at that level. How is emancipation occurring? And what is the role in it of institutions, of culture, of politics, of and going from basic needs to changes in society? Now, let's be very clear. First of all, of course, what family farms, what farming families want is that one way or another they are able to feed their children, to create good conditions for their children or the short run, on the longer run, to get educated, to make their own decision whether to continue in agriculture or not. Yeah, in the past, being in agriculture was destiny. Today, it's always more a question of willingness. You opt for it or not. Yeah, and that brings into the discussion what is the attractiveness of life in the countryside and being agriculture. Yeah, the Chinese, one more word about China. The Chinese agricultural policy is very much inspired in what they call San Nong. That means the three ruralities. And one of these ruralities is struggling for a healthier, more pretty life in the rural villages. Your life is to be attractive in the countryside. You have to have a broad line. You have to have access to services. Yeah, there are to be good conditions for the children. But going back to the farming family, yes, they want a better life. They want a good income. But with that is absolutely nothing wrong. Yeah, everybody wants to improve his life and create better starting points for his or her children or comrades or whatever it is. Yeah, that's not a problem. The problem is, what are the conditions under which this is to be done? What are the institutions shaping the courses of action? And then a key question also of political economy: who benefits from the efforts of the peasants? Are they themselves benefiting or not? And then they are to face a very complicated world. Yeah, and this gives indeed two processes at the same time: de-peasantization and re-peasantization. I've done with colleagues a very extended multi-level statistical analysis of the Netherlands, yeah, where the total number of farms is going down already for decades. So that would make you very pessimistic. There seems to be only a de-peasantization. Yeah, if you take the censuses, what you see is every year or every 10 years, less farms and the remaining farms are larger. So people think, well, the large farms are growing and the small farms are disappearing. Partly true, but at the same time, there are very strong counter-tendencies. You see that some small farms are developing through hard labor into medium farms. And of these medium farms, some obtain even more means of production and become large farms, still peasant, still family farms. Yeah, but and then there is the outflow of small farms, but also an inflow of people, youngsters, but also of a manager of a supermarket, for instance, yeah, who gets absolutely annoyed with this supermarket business and starts his farm. Yeah, and so policemen, teachers, yeah, many people like to start a farm at a certain point in their life cycle. So there is an inflow just as there is an outflow. And it's not only small farms disappearing, but also big farms. And yeah, so it's a very complicated panorama, which can be summarized, yeah, as de-peasantization and re-peasantization at the same time. then this translating questions, this being the case, what does it mean? And how can we make sure that the outcome of this is impacting in a positive way, and how certain trends can be changed, and what is the role of political movements, social movements in all this? And again, when you see to practice, to political struggles, it's amazing that in a country as the Netherlands, seen by many as the top point of modernized farming, yeah, the young farmers that are entering identify once again themselves as peasants, and they struggle. Their argument is, we need not less peasants, we need more peasants in this country to resolve the main problems that cannot be resolved by bringing in more technology that will not function. Yeah, if we want to, and we are suffocating ourselves with this export orientation, we have to do it differently. Yeah, so there is the beginning of a turning point. What will be the outcome? I don't know. Nobody knows. But what I know is that the struggle is going on, and we can really contribute to it by developing a good understanding of peasant agriculture and the promises it carries. Yeah, that is what can be done. And I think that's already a major task. But I can assure you it's also very nice work. I mean, you meet nice people, you meet the possibility to have good feed, to join in parties. It allows you sometimes to join, there was this question, to opportunities of higher education. One, it might seem enigmatic for you, but the truth is that among the small farmers that identify as peasants in the Netherlands currently, they have the highest percentage of university graduates. So there's another signal that the world is in this respect changing. In certain aspects is becoming more awkward. Yeah, increasing parts of food being controlled by capital, modifying our food in all different ways, making it less nutritious, etc., etc. But there are also positive signs, and again, we can help to strengthen all this. I will stop here. I understand that there were other questions about delinking and other important things. Well, implicitly, it was in what I said. We have to delink from these oppressing laws that has been formulated by previous generations of scholars that say that agricultural development can just go one way, towards large farms, towards elimination of the peasantry. We can delink ourselves from these laws. I stop here. Thank you.
Much. It's very elaborative and yeah, to let us more thinking. So, any other questions? That's great. It's Jun, you have other concluding remarks or something? It's okay. That's good. It's. That's why he isn't back. Okay, don't worry. We are coming to him. Thank you so much, Jan. Thank you, Amr, for your comments and the questions, and to having us for the pathways. And also, it might be to concluding the free copy, online copy in Arabic. It is available actually on SIYADA Network beside other publication. You can check it at SIYADA.org. I just checked the website .org, not .com. And if you are the person of hard copy, Al-Maraya, thankfully, helping us to printing the Arabic version of the books. I think we can say thank you, final thank you for all organizers and helpful to organize all of that. And we can move for break, right, Angie? And then we starting the second session. Shukran jazilan.